So we're in the tech studio with Keenan. For those following, this is actually take two. We had a little sound issue on the first one. No big deal, but we're holding a new product that we get questions about all the time. We kind of reached out to you guys about it. We've seen it in some bags on tour. This is Even Flow Riptide MX. And before you kind of jump in and tell everybody about it, two things. First, stay tuned to the end. We're going to go over all the tech on an overhead shot. But Even Flow and Even Flow Riptide has been kind of an evolution. You started with Even Flow. Moved to Even Flow Riptide last year. Mm-hmm. A lot of people knew that as the CB version, and then there was an orange one that was really popular for golfers. What is this, and where does it fit into that?
So for our MX and LX, it's kind of an evolution of that Riptide line we had. So still falls within that family, what we're calling our X series of Riptide right here. And so LX and MX are going to be very stable, low torque shafts for us. So kind of keep that even flow feel, that even flow profile that a lot of players have liked over the years, but really just kind of that stability aspect, adding another kind of layer to it that hasn't been there before.
So MX, LX, can you kind of tell us the differences and how big of a difference there is between them?
Yeah, so MX and LX, obviously the LX is going to be a low launch, MX is mid launch, really creative here. Thanks, Don. But big difference from a design aspect when you kind of get under the hood of both. So from the LX perspective, CPM wise, that's going to hit what we usually call our TX flex at about 280.
Okay.
So for the MX part, it's going to be actually about a flex softer from a frequency standpoint.
But not a flex softer in playability.
Correct. So the way we offset that is that torque for that MX part is going to be super low. So in a 60 gram part, it's actually going to be 2.3 degrees of torque in that MX part. So it's not going to feel as soft as that profile, but that profile being so soft allows us to really hit that mid-launch spec we're going for.
And we've had Don Brown on our videos in the past talking about torque and how it's mainly about feel. There's some stuff to it, but altering the torque of a shaft will alter the feel quite a bit. This will not feel like your typical mid-launch, softer to flex kind of thing. This one in my hand feels like a TX.
Correct. So what we're really saying about the MX part and the LX parts, so our X series shafts, is they're bend profile optimized for that low torque.
Okay. Now, Even Flow Riptide, while it had a full line, known a little bit about counterbalance, mm-hmm. and while most graphite shafts are a little bit counterbalanced, it's not really thought of that way. Is this viewed as a counterbalance shaft internally at Project X, or is this traditional?
It'll be just swing weight neutral for us.
Swing weight neutral. Mm-hmm. Now, we talked MX, LX. What are the biggest differences when a person puts both in their hands in the same driver head, takes swings? Are they going to notice a difference? Is it pretty substantial? What's going to be the biggest difference here?
I think from a feel perspective, kind of in hand, they won't feel too different, although they'll be a lot different from a profile standpoint, like I said. So really with that low torque of that MX part, we've kind of dialed that in to still feel really stable. And obviously the LX is going to feel stable. One, from it being really stiff, but still the torque's 2.6 on that one also, so it's still really low. But you should feel a little more activation from the tip section specifically of that MX part, whereas the LX has 3 separate high mod tip inserts in it.
Now, these are getting play on tour. Surprisingly enough, normally we see low as the dominant force on tour. Not the case in this. I noticed the red. Yeah. Why is that? Is it a feel thing? Is it a torque thing? And how much do you expect that to expand as these seem to be catching fire? Reminds me a little bit of when Hazardous hit the stage.
Yeah, so for us, it's really kind of been the quickest adopted shaft we've had since really the original Hazardous or maybe even Hulk. So I think MX has been so popular though, because you look at our line, really with the Hazardous line and a lot of tour shafts out there being low launch, low spin, they're all pretty stable from a feel standpoint and from a torque standpoint. But from a mid-launch shaft, you don't really have that 2.3 degrees of torque shaft, so kind of those softer shafts where people still need some help with launch and spin on tour can feel a little whippy to them sometimes. So really coming out with that low torque shaft, low torque part with MX and dialing down that torque, it's just, on tour, it's been a home run for us.
If you guys didn't notice me not paying attention to Keenan or the camera, it's because this is striking, and you guys will see it in the B-roll that's going over as we're talking. It is gorgeous, like different than most of the stuff you've done. It's the color choices, right? Change that silver to a gold. We got a little Florida State thing going on.
There you go.
Before we jump back to the other section of the tech studio and you can talk about the tech, the biggest question I have is when is it going to come? Because we know people are going to ask.
Yeah, so right now the target date for our X Series shafts is mid-July, and it'll be available through our True Temper Performance Fitting Centers.
Okay, so then they can find that on the new website.
New website, yep, truetempersports.com. So we got a new website. You should be able to find our dealers on there.
If you follow them, you notice they have the new logo, the new hammers.
I'm not going to do the hammer time dance
Oh,
this time.
yeah, we did that on the last video that got killed. But can you before we just jump away from that, can you kind of say, like, it's not, the company didn't change. It's still the same high performance products, just new things. And tell everybody where they can find your YouTube channel with you talking a lot about these shafts.
Yeah, so our YouTube thing's been a big push for us over the past year. I've taken a couple months break, just traveling a lot.
Always
doing some
good for
other stuff.
analytics.
That's right. And so we're coming back with a lot of content, have a lot of stuff in the oven. You can find it at True Temper Golf for our YouTube channel.
True Temper Golf. So check that out. We're going to jump back. We'll be right back in a second and talk a little bit about the tech. So they're looking down at the two different shafts. Mistakenly, in our previous part of this video, I was just holding the one because the red looks great, but they actually both look great. But we've talked a little bit about the differences. We've talked about the performance. We've talked about when they're coming. What makes them different and what makes them unique from a tech standpoint, if you can kind of break down the segments?
Yeah, so for our MX and LX, like I said, that MX part is obviously our mid-launching part. So what we really did in the bottom 20 inches of the shaft is added some 40-ton carbon fiber there to really dial in that launch we were going for. And then on that LX part, for the tip section, we actually used 3 separate high mod tip flags to really dial in that stiff tip, that low launch capability of that LX product.
When you're looking at a material standpoint, there's a lot of buzzwords with different materials, whether it's T1100 and all the other materials that go into it. Very rarely do they talk about material placement. What makes these unique from your other shafts?
I mean, it's just part of dialing in that bin profile optimization that we were talking about with this new X series. So with the torques being so low, we really have to be careful with how we make that bin profile. So if you make it obviously too stiff with the torque being, 2.6, 2.3, it's going to feel like an absolute board. So you have to be really unique with it. And that's something our engineers did a really good job at, of complementing the two together.
Finally, we want to know, basically, and we've been talking about it, which will be the bigger shaft? Which one do you guys want to play? We asked you earlier. Give us a thought in the comments below. Which one looks better to you? The black with the red with the red and black, I guess you would say. Are you an MX or an LX person? Let us know. Which one are you, Keenan?
I'm actually an LX person, but I tell you what, I was blown away by the MX, and that might be creeping in my 3-wood soon.
Interesting. Let us know how it goes for you. We're going to see you guys get these in July. And we look forward to hearing your feedback.